Today, we are talking about memory. How many times have you misplaced your keys? Or how about this? Look for your phone when your phone is in your hand. Does this mean that you're losing our memory? Are we like 1 second away for dementia? Is that what it means? Is it inevitable that as we age, we lose our memory? And of course, you already know what I'm going to say. No, it's not inevitable. But today, let's dive into what causes memory loss and what you can do to keep your memory sharp as you age. And you'll be surprised to learn some of these. So, super excited to get into this topic. This is a topic that gets a lot of people nervous. So, as always, I always start with a definition. What is memory loss? So, memory loss is a decline in memory function, and it could be mild all the way to severe. It's a spectrum, it's not a fixed condition. We have mild memory loss, which is forgetting appointments, misplacing items, pretty common for most people, especially as they get older, and we'll talk about why. But this type of memory loss does not affect daily activities or quality of life. Then we have moderate memory loss, which may include difficulty remembering names or recent events, getting lost in familiar places, or having trouble with complex tasks like managing your finances. This type of memory loss may start to affect daily life and will require some level of support or assistance. And then, of course, we have severe memory loss, the kind that we are all very fearful of. And we have that significant cognitive decline that affects daily activities, quality of life. People with severe memory loss may not be able to remember important things, may not be able to recognize familiar people, or carry out basic activities of daily living. This is the level of memory loss that we refer to with conditions like Alzheimer's dementia. Okay, so we got the definition out of the way. So the question is, why do we all believe that memory loss is inevitable? Why do we think that if with age we have to lose our memory? We do see that there are more memory issues with older people, so we think it's a normal part of aging, but it doesn't have to be. This is true for other things as well. We notice that older people don't move as well, or they're sicker, they have more medication. None of that has to be part of aging. And once we explore the why behind why this happens, you'll see that it's not inevitable. Now, I do want to say this physically, there's no doubt that there are some age related changes that occur in the brain. There's reduced blood flow, there's shrinkage of an area of the brain called the hippocampus, which is responsible for forming and retrieving memories. That happens as we age. There's no doubt about that. But the research shows that those changes don't necessarily lead to memory loss. In fact, there's many older adults who have perfectly normal memory function well until their 80s and 90s, even though they have these physical changes in the brain. So the point is, memory loss does not have to come with these age related brain changes. I don't want you to think just because the brain changes, we have to lose our memory. So, what are the causes? If it's not the brain changing, what are the causes? Let's go through the list. You know, I have a list for you, I always do. First is medical conditions. If you are dealing with certain medical conditions, you may not realize that that medical condition, which feels far away from your brain, is actually affecting your memory. Let's start with a super common one: sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is a sleep disorder where your breathing is disrupted at night. It means that all night you have really poor sleep and you have oxygen deprivation to your brain. Guess what happens to your memory if you have years of oxygen deprivation every night? I can think you can figure it out. That so if you know that you or think that you have apnea, right? I mean, you're snoring, your partner's telling you all the time, or maybe you already know, you already been diagnosed, and you're like, yeah, not a big deal. So I snore a little bit. Who cares? So I don't breathe a little bit at night. Who cares? Think again. Sleep apnea completely related to memory loss. Hypothyroidism. For those of you who don't know, hypothyroidism is when your thyroid gland does not produce enough thyroid hormone. And I did a whole episode on Hashimoto's. Make sure you find it and how nutrition affects it. But the bottom line is this: make sure your thyroid is on point because it affects your memory. Again, not something you might consider. Vitamin B12 deficiency. Vitamin B12 is super important for the brain. I can't tell you how many times people will come into my primary care practice and we'll do an annual test. And I'll say, hey, Mr. Smith, your B12 is low and I need you to go get some B12. Great. Yeah, of course, E, no problem. They come back 1 year later. Guess what? B12 is still low. And I'm like, are you planning to take the supplements? And they say, it's not a big deal. Vitamins don't really work. It's a big deal. They really work. Take the damn B12 for your brain. Thank you. Another thing, chronic kidney disease, what we call CKD. That can lead to accumulations of toxins in the body, which can affect the brain. Now, most of you listening are saying, I don't have a kidney problem, so I'm just going to skip this one. Well, let me tell you, let me hang tight right there. If you're listening and you have high blood pressure or diabetes, guess what's around the corner for you? Chronic kidney disease. This is why we're so on top of your blood pressure and your diabetes, because it causes chronic kidney disease. So if you're not on top of your blood pressure and your diabetes, if you're not taking the medications or making the right changes to make sure that your diabetes and blood pressure are well controlled, you are at risk for chronic kidney disease. And when you have chronic kidney disease, it affects your brain. Pay attention, take your meds. So these medical conditions are manageable. We've become so used to hearing about these diseases that we're like, whatever, I have high blood pressure, no big deal. My diabetes is a little out of range. You must manage them if you want to protect your brain. It's no longer just about the sugar number. Protect your brain at all costs. Let's talk about a few more things that can affect your brain besides these chronic issues. Well, one is chronic pain. People who live with chronic pain, this can have a negative impact on your brain function, including your memory. And of course, it could also lead to depression and anxiety, which also affects memory. Now, I know for some of you, chronic pain, you're managing it and it's kind of inevitable. I know. I live with someone who has chronic pain. Baby, I love you. I hope your back feels better today. But there are people walking around with chronic pain that they may not have to have. The constant aches and pains, the headaches, the joint pain, the fibromyalgia, the IBS. You're walking around thinking it's part of aging. It isn't. It's likely due to inflammation. And if you don't get on top of it, that chronic pain that you're so used to, it will start affecting your brain. And if you don't know where to start, I just did an episode called Where Do I Start? Find it on YouTube and start there. Menopause. Menopause is a natural part of the aging process for women. We know that. But studies have shown that women going through menopause can experience memory problems because of these hormone levels. This is why I'm a huge fan of BHRT. I did an episode on it too. Bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. Not going to go into it, but get on it. These hormones are not just for hot flashes. They are there to make sure that your brain and your heart and your bones kind of stay on point and where they need to be. All right, moving on to my list. I know it's a lot, but I need you to see how many things affect your brain that you would not necessarily think have anything to do with your brain. Medication. Certain anxiety medication, what we call benzodiazepines, if you're on Xanax, anything of that nature, those, they help with your anxiety, but guess what else they do? They mess with your brain. Now, if you need them once in a while, you're scared to go to the dentist, you're scared to go on an airplane, no big deal. But if you're using these on the daily, it is a mind eraser. It's affecting your brain. Certain depression meds, especially tricyclic antidepressants, can do the same thing. Sleep medication. If you're relying on sleep medication, it's a big problem for your brain. Fix what's going on with your sleep. Try to get off those medications. Maybe you have sleep apnea, which is what we started with. Get on it because all those meds affect your memory. Statins. Statins are a type of medication used to lower cholesterol. You know this, right? Studies have shown that long-term use of statins can affect your memory. Now, I am not telling you to stop taking your statins. Do not say, I just heard this thing from E and she said I should stop taking statins. No, what I am saying is fix your damn cholesterol so that you don't need the statins because the statins are messing with your brain. Okay, thank you. Number 3, antihistamines. I know we need antihistamines. It's spring and, a lot is happening, but you don't want to over-rely on those because antihistamines, the ones that cause drowsiness, if you use them all the time, guess what? Linked to memory problems. Use sparingly. Make sure you're working on your allergies. Make sure you're on top of it. Blood pressure medications. This is surprising for some. Some blood pressure medications, like beta blockers, have been linked to memory problems. And again, I am not telling you to stop taking. Do not show up at your doctor's office tomorrow and say, I heard on YouTube on a podcast that I should stop taking my blood pressure medication because it affects my memory. I am not saying that. I'm saying get yourself right so that you don't need your blood pressure medication, because those blood pressure medications are going to mess with your brain later on in life. Other factors that affect memory. Okay, we talk about medical conditions, medications. We have to talk about sleep. Sleep, 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 sleep. I've done episodes on this. Lack of sleep, poor sleep affects your memory. Period. End of sentence. You need to sleep. Okay. During sleep, you process information, you clear out waste. Poor sleep it interferes with this process and it leads to memory problems. It's important to practice good sleep hygiene. Do not be out here getting your gluten-free game on and thinking, I got this because my nutrition's on point, and then you're sleeping 3 hours a night. No, it's not working out. You have to get your sleep right. Stress. Again, if you figured out your sleep and you figured out your nutrition, but you have not figured out your stress, it's going to impact your brain. And that includes your memory function, because stress hormones like cortisol over time damage the hippocampus, the area of the brain responsible for forming and retrieving memory. So get on that. Therapy, walking, meditation, spending time with people that you love, make it a priority. Of course, nutrition. I'm not going to spend too much time on nutrition because I talk about it all the time. But if your diet is full of high processed foods and very low nutrients, your body is really busy figuring out how to process these chemicals. And that is going to affect your brain health and your memory function. You need to eat a healthy, balanced diet, including foods that are great for the brain, like omega-3 and other nutrients that can help support brain health. So get on that too. Of course, lack of physical activity. If you are just sitting on the couch all the time, it's not going to be good for your brain. Physical activity is important for maintaining brain health and memory function. Certain chemicals are released when you move that keep the brain sharp. P.S. Movement doesn't have to be joining a CrossFit gym. It just means taking a walk outside. If you have a sedentary lifestyle, it leads to a decline in cognitive function, including your memory. Just move. When you move, the blood flows, goes to the brain, helps your brain. Let's get it done. And the last thing I want to talk about that affects your memory is substance abuse, like alcohol, of course, drugs as well. But a lot of time people think, well, I don't really have substance abuse. Substance abuse is for extreme issues. I don't have an extreme issue. But if you like to have a few glasses of wine every night, trust me, it's affecting your brain. You're not going to be as sharp. Once in a while, sure. But if you're having it and thinking, this is not excessive, I'm not intoxicated, this is just my daily wine at dinner, this over time will affect your brain. Just consider it. I know some people don't want to give up their wine. I get it. Just consider it. So what you've heard so far is a list of so many things that affect your memory. And none of them have to do with age. It's just that as we age, we tend to be on more meds. We tend not to sleep as much. We tend not to move as much. We tend not to eat so well. And these are the reasons that cause the memory loss, not our age. So in addition to trying to get healthy enough to reduce your medication, get the right sleep, the other big issue for losing our memory is we don't use our brain enough. If you're not challenging your brain with new information and experiences, it's more likely that your memory will decline over time. This is why it's so important to keep your brain active by learning new things, solving puzzles, engaging in mentally stimulating activities. I'm going to give you a list. This is why so many people decline when they retire. Right? I'm not telling you not to retire. By all means, if you are ready to retire, do so. But if you retire and now you're just kind of putzing around the house without any other stimulation, your brain doesn't get signals. It says, hey, we don't actually need your brain so much. And your brain starts, getting rid of parts it doesn't need. There is something called mental pruning, right? Like the way you prune a tree. There's something called mental pruning. It's our body's natural way of getting rid of neurons that are not needed. It helps the brain operate efficiently, and it does it all the time. If it determines there's a part of your brain it doesn't need, it kind of dies off. We don't need this part. However, as we age, we tend to do the same thing over and over again. We take the same walk, we eat the same breakfast, we hang out with the same people, we do the same thing over and over again. So the parts of the brain that we don't use because we're not learning anything new, we're not in school, we're not learning anything, our brain says, oh, I don't need this part. We don't need these neurons. Let's just start pruning them. And then when you finally say, you know what, I would like to learn a new skill right now, you can't, because your brain literally got rid of the part that could have helped you learn that. So you have to work out your brain just like you work out other parts of your body. If you don't, your brain will get rid of it. And you need to be aware this happens more than ever because we rely so much on technology. When was the last time you remembered somebody's phone number? Never. Okay. Hopefully you remember your spouse and your kids, but sometimes people don't even have that. So we're constantly putting things in our phone. We're constantly putting our list in our phone. We never really use our brains to memorize things anymore. So we have to make a decision to engage in mentally stimulating activities. Regular engaging in mentally stimulating activities such as puzzles, reading, but not reading the same type of thing all the time. You need to read new information, not just the things in the topic of your career. It's not challenging enough. It's good, but you need to explore new topics. Like reading fiction is really good because it forces you to use your imagination. The next thing you need to do for your brain, and we're going to talk about brain exercises, you need to pay more attention. Sometimes you go to a party and people give you their names and you're like, I don't remember anyone's name. And you might think it's your memory, but in fact, what's happening is you're just not paying attention, right? They're talking to you, yes, my name is Paul, and you're like thinking about what I should eat next. And is there a line at the dessert? Is there a line at the bar? And you're not really paying attention to this guy. And then later you say, oh my God, what was that guy's name we talked to? And you're like, oh man, I'm really losing my memory. Not really. You weren't paying attention. Pay attention. Next time you're at an event and someone tells you their name, try to visualize that person's name above their head and give yourself some visuals if you can, because your brain likes visual. Later, after the event is over, see if you can remember it. Use this as a form of a mental exercise. The next thing I want you to do is learn a new skill. This is the time to learn a new language, learn a new dance. Have you seen those TikToks where the people in my age are learning new dances? It's really important. It's really hard for us to learn these dances. Learn them. Take up a new instrument. Learn how to knit, something you've never done before. It wakes up your brain and it stops that pruning I was talking about. Consider memorizing your to-do list or your grocery list. You can still keep it in your pocket just in case, because you don't want to come home without that stuff. So again, memorize your list, write it down, try to memorize it. Go into the store and see, can I remember everything? Keep it in your pocket just in case, because you don't want to mess up. But this is a great way to exercise your brain. If you like to cook, look at the recipe and try to remember it. Try to visualize it before you cook instead of checking every second. Is it a quarter cup? Is it 2/3 cup? See if you can memorize it. These are great ways to kind of work out your brain. Stay socially active. Social connections are important for maintaining brain health and memory function. Stay connected with friends and family. Join a club or a group. Volunteer in your community. Again, one of the reasons people who retire devolve is because they lose these interactions. It's so important. So here's the bottom line. While memory loss feels common as we age, it's not inevitable. We associate it with aging because that is when we have all these other things going on. We have these medications and we're not moving and we're not eating right and we're not sleeping right. So limit your alcohol. Do everything you can to manage your chronic conditions and get off your meds. Eat right, move, and use your brain as much as possible. If you don't use it, you lose it. Thanks to mental pruning, that's what happens. And of course, this is a lot. And if you try to do it on your own, or you could work with me and my team, this is how to reach us. At The New Method, just about anywhere, everywhere except for Twitter, because I talk too much. So Instagram, YouTube, website, The New Method, find us, send us a message, let us know you want to work with us. And, hopefully we help you keep your mind sharp as you age. No matter what you decide, I'm so happy that you're here and listening. And I know that you always knew there was a better way. I'll talk to you next week.